Okay. So I've been trying to prove myself for most of my life. And when I start looking back at it, it was not because I was trying to be the best at anything. It was not because I was trying to excel at anything in particular. It was a coping mechanism to fit in, to not be judged, the fear of failing. But also, I think not just fitting in, I think more so it was a fear of standing out. I think that was probably the biggest factor, is I didn't want to be standing out. I didn't want to be seen as different, if that makes sense. And I think that started from a very young age, especially in school. I was an introverted type kid. I was a very quiet type kid. I didn't excel very much in anything. I had to study and practice a lot at everything I did. At home, I was always building stuff, playing Legos, all that sort of stuff as well. And I liked to do that because it gave me control. It gave me an ability to repeat, and improve my skills. And I think that was very important. So this whole time through school became a whole time of building my skills in private so I could perform in public. And I think that's what really set me up for the rest of my life, of that constant loop of having to prove myself. And we all know kids in school are very honest when it comes to these sorts of things. If you don't fit in, if you don't match what's seen as the norm, you get flagged for it, you get shown for it. So that constant need to wanting to have to conform, to fit in, becomes very controlling. And I think from there, it went from there into my adult life, moving into my high school, moving into my first jobs, moving into careers, relationships, everything. All of these things basically had a need to constantly prove myself from that early stage. High school was probably one of the roughest, going through learning where I wanted to do with myself, what job I wanted to do. I led more towards manual arts and things again because I had control of that myself. It was something that I was able to master myself, to show that I was good at something for myself. And again, not because I wanted to excel at anything, not because I wanted to be the best at anything, but because I wanted to fit in. I wanted to show that I was capable. I showed that I was able to do what I was able to do. And that then followed me into my job. My first jobs were again about trying to prove myself. It was basically taking up a job, learning what had to be done, practicing that job, doing lots of study, anything I needed to do that job to the best that I could do. Not to get promotions, not to show anybody else up, but to show that I was capable, that I was able to do that job that they requested of me. But then also that started creating another pattern, and that was this overachieving. Like every time you were asked to do something, because you'd spent so much time trying to do that job and you were trying to show that you were capable, if they asked you to do more, you then felt a need to then have to then prove that as well. So you took on that extra duties, you took on that extra responsibilities to show that you were capable. Again, so you didn't stand out, so that you didn't be seen as the one that was creating friction, causing any conflict, anything. And again, I'm already seeing that patterns. Going from those jobs, going into my first jobs again, I had a drafting job to start off with, and that really kicked in there. And I would spend lots of time, I would do lots of hours trying to do that job really well. And I had another young guy that was beside me that basically just did it really well. And he would always flag out where I made mistakes and what I needed to do better and things like that as well. And I took that very personally. I would then go away and I would practice so I could come back and meet that new level that he'd set for me. So there's always this constant, development. And I know we need this. In life we need to master skills, and we need to try to do those skills the best we can. But I think that constant desire to prove ourselves takes a front seat that controls every part of our life. So that was through schooling. That was through my first types of jobs and things like that as well. It started to show up a little bit in relationships as well, of constantly trying to prove myself in relationships, not causing conflict in relationships, always wanting to over-deliver in relationships and things like that as well, so that, again, there was no conflict, that I didn't stand out, that I didn't be seen as not conforming, not normal. But I still at this early stages didn't see this. I didn't understand this completely, and I didn't understand how it was controlling me so much. Not until I then moved overseas. And once I'd moved overseas, that was 20 odd years ago I moved overseas, that's where I was really tested. Because once you move to a new country where you're talking languages, cultures, new systems, new ways of doing things, new environments, all of these things are brand new, and you're used to setting yourself up where you know everything, how everything works and what's expected before you go into those environments, so you can plan and then basically show up and perform in those environments. That was all gone. I didn't have that fallback. I had to now start dealing with these things in real time, and I had to step up very, very quickly and show that I was capable very, very quickly. And that led to, obviously, again, longer hours, overperforming, over-delivering, made a lot of mistakes. I look back now with some of my jobs and my careers and even my relationships, there was a lot of mistakes in there. And again, we need mistakes, we need to learn from mistakes. But I think the fact that I took on way too much and I was expecting way too much of myself created that problem and created this need to prove myself. So yeah, living overseas really started to flag that. It raised that issue more so, really highlighted it more so. From there, that was 5-10 years into living overseas to various countries. Then I just started to wanted to open up my own company. That was in China, so I wanted to open up my own company. This is where things really became noticeable and became a problem, a real problem of proving myself. Because when you have your own company and you're trying to run your own company, you're responsible for the company. You're responsible for the workload. You're responsible for the management of it, the planning of it, but also the income of it. So when you're running your own company and you're a person that likes to prove yourself, you're going to go into these new jobs and take up these new projects by overcommitting, over-delivering, or over-promising on every single job. And you're going to show yourself and deliver yourself in a way that seems enticing to these people and to the contract. So you'll go in there, you'll price the job up, you say what you're going to do, the hours you're going to do, what your deliverables are, everything as well. But then once that job starts and they know what they're capable and what you're capable of, then they start asking for additional stuff. But the downside is they're asking for these things, and because you want to deliver and you want to prove yourself, you don't say no. But you also don't feel like you can charge extra for this because it's something that is expected as part of that contract. So I found that I did a lot of jobs that I was not making money on. I was overcommitting on everything, over-delivering on everything. The jobs were everything I did I felt had good value in there to a point, but I wasn't getting paid what I was worth. I wasn't getting paid for what I'd completed. I wasn't getting paid a fair amount for the time that I was putting in for what I was doing. So this whole entrepreneurship really started to, owning your own company really started to show up in there. And it really, for me, probably happened one or 2 years ago is when it really started to become noticeable. I'd lost a company because of this. It failed. And that's where I started to say, I started to question myself and as to what the problems were. What did I need to change? What was the problem that was causing me to get to this point? And that's where I started to realize that I was, one, overcommitting, one, that I was over-delivering, one, that I was too self-critical and too self-judging of myself, all again to come back to this original format of not wanting to fail, not wanting to be seen as a failure, wanting to fit in, wanting to be seen as normal, to be seen as one that can deliver, one that someone can rely on me and can deliver. So this was a couple of years ago where I got into this phase, and this is where I then started to make a very big change. I started to really step back and saying, I need to work out how to control this better. I need to work out how to be able to take on new jobs and get paid for what it's worth without losing my time, losing money and all these things as well. And that's where I really started to slow down. Was the first one, which I'm very much a big fan of slowing down. Once you slow down, things become very clear. Once you're running at a fast pace, things become very blurred. You don't really see where the problems are because everything mashes together. But by slowing down, taking a step back and analyzing things a little bit differently from a different point of view, gives you a chance to see where the weaknesses are and what you're good at. So I slowed down and I started to really assess myself saying, okay, I've mastered a lot of skills. I've worked in a lot of different jobs. But now, especially over 50, what is it that I really wanted to be focusing my time on? What is it that I wanted to be giving a lot of my energy, a lot of my time, a lot of my value to moving forward? And that's where I made big changes. I really started to say, well, this is my basically non-negotiables. This is where I want to be moving forward from now on. This is where I want to be donating my energy, my time. And that's where I pushed that way, and I set that in concrete. I did not change from that, it got to a point where at first it felt very uncomfortable, because when you say no to a new contract, when you say no to an ongoing contract, when you say no to someone that you've known for a long time, for me that was very intimidating. That was very hard to do, because saying no meant that, well, hang on, that means that I'm now standing out, because now they're going to judge me. They're going to judge me for failing. They're going to judge me for not delivering. They're going to judge me for all these things. So that first few steps was very, very difficult, saying no and having to be sure not to back out of it and then go and say, I will do it. But I've had some time now. I've managed to follow that through for a while, of saying no, of sticking to my systems, making sure I don't overcommit, making sure I don't over deliver on anything I do. It's made a difference. It really has made a difference. And I feel that now my future is clearer, much clearer. I'm happier. I'm in a far better place. I have now no problems saying no to people. I have no problems walking away from something that seems great, because it doesn't match where I want to be. It doesn't match with this vision of my life that I want to be doing. Because we don't want to get to a point in our life where we say, right, I'm going to retire now, what am I going to do? And then fill our life with lots of little, useless items. I see my every day of my life, whether it's at work, at home, whether it's traveling, whatever it is, this is the life we've been given. This is the day we're supposed to be, the days, the years, the months, whatever, that we're supposed to be enjoying. So all of these things need to align. The job you have should be a job that you can enjoy, that you feel like you're fulfilling for yourself, but also providing for you as well, financially, mentally, whatever. So all of these things need to align. And that's where I've got to. I've got to a point now where I like making content. I work with companies making videos and things as well. I've spent a lot of time mastering my skills of actually now speaking on camera with people as well, which was not easy to do at a young age. I was very self-conscious of getting and speaking in front of a group, because again, it's been seen as standing out. But it's been actually so good to step back and realize now that I don't need to prove myself, that I don't need to make everybody happy. My value, my self-value, my self-trust in myself, in what my ability is, and always will be, more important than all those things from now on.